In this lecture, we are now ready to write the functionality to persist the user's information into our database. So the very first thing we want to do is to get back again to our test editor and continue from where we left in the last lecture. So right now our validation is successful. So let's just put here undo validation errors. And then right here we want to persist user in database. So a much better way for us to do this is to defer the persisting of a user to the database to another function. So we can come here and say this persist user and then pass it request. So we have not yet created this function, so we can just come down here and then say private function persist user and then pass it the data. So inside of here, the first thing that we want to do is to create a new instance of the user model. So we're going to say user equals to new user. So the user model comes with a fresh installation of Legato framework. So that should be app models. So you should ensure that you are including all of the use statement here. So right now we have 4: recapture, app model, users, request, and validator. So ensure that you include all of them. So once we create a new instance of the user model, we want to say user username. This should be equal to, so we can just rename this to be request to make it look nicer. So we can say request input, so that will be input username. Then I can probably just duplicate this in 4 places. The next one is going to be the password. So this is going to be hashed. So we're going to hash the password. So we can use the Legato secret function to hash this password. So the next one will be email. So let's correct this to password, and then let's correct this to email. And then let's set an activation code. So activation underscore code. So this is not going to be equal to request. We're just going to use string random and then set this to be equal to 15. So we're going to generate 15 random string and then just save it as the activation code. So before we actually save the user into the database, we want to check if they are trying to upload an avatar. So we can do that very easily by tapping into request. So we can say if request file, so call the file method and then say if it has avatar. So if request file method as avatar and request file get of avatar. So we want to be sure that there's actually a value. So get of avatar is not equal to null. So if this is the case, it means that the user is actually uploading a profile picture. So right here, we can now grab all of the data relating to the file that is being uploaded. So we can create a variable here called file and then set that to be equal to request files get avatar. So we're using avatar here because in our form, we set that property to be equal to avatar. So we need to actually double check that. So come here. So avatar name is avatar. So the name control here is avatar. That is why right here, we are using avatar for our check. So we grab that file object and then save it inside of this variable called file. And then we can now begin to get all of the data that we want to get from here. So we want to grab the extension, for example. So let's say the extension is going to be equal to file guest client extension. So guest client extension. So correct this. So that will be the extension. File name should be equal to request input username concatenated with the extension. So if you want to directly use the file name and the extension of the file that the user is uploading, then you can use another method, which is called get client original name. So you can just say file get client original name. So this is a function or method that's going to give you the actual name of the file that is being uploaded. So the reason why I'm breaking this down here is because you may want to actually check if the extension is valid. So you may want to check this to see is the extension actually valid. If the extension is not valid, you want to return an error message. So let's see how we could handle that. So we could just say if not in array. So just a simple way for us to quickly validate the extension. So let's say PNG, JPEG. So let's just say these are lists of valid extensions. Let's say JPG, JPEG. Here you can immediately decide on what you want to do. Do you want to stop the registration, which is essentially finish creating the user account because they are uploading an image which is larger than what you actually requested? So we can then say return file extension is not valid. So if you want to check for the file size, so you can also do that check. So if file get size, so we can get the size of the file is greater than, let's say 5 MB, so 5. Then you can also return file size is too big. So if you want to be a bit accurate here, you can just take it up a little bit. Say 5242. I just leave this as 5K. So basically you should not even allow someone to be uploading a file that is this big. So at least 2 MB is okay for the avatar. I'm just going to leave this as say 3K to make it a little bit flexible. If this two validation does not fail, then we can actually just grab the file name. So we could just do it directly like this, get the actual file name of the user, then save it. Or we do this method because our username is unique, then we can always have unique files inside of our avatar folder. But then it's totally up to you, but I wouldn't want to use the name of the file that the user is uploading. Just get to complicate things later. So the next thing that we want to do here now is to actually move the file to a specific location. So we can then say file, move, and then we specify the path and then the name of the file. So that will be file name. So for me, I want to move the file to my public folder. So I can use the base path constant. So the base path constant is defined inside of bootstrap.php. So that's defined here to be inside of the directory, so the base directory. So I'm going to just use that to determine where I'm moving my file to. So this is totally up to you where you want to place your file. So I will be placing this inside of the public folder. So public/avatar. So we want to create a new folder inside of public called avatars. Just come here and then just say new directory, avatar, and then place the file inside of there. So once we do that, we want to now say user, avatar. So that is the avatar column. We want to set it to be equal to /avatar, which is the folder name. So avatars / then the file name. Okay, so we create the user, set all of the data, check if the user is uploading a file, and then also check if there are any errors like the wrong extension and also the file is too big. So if none of that is the case, then we want to move the file to the specified location, update the user's avatar column in the database, and then we are now ready to save the data. So we can now say user save. So call the save method on the user object. So once we persist that, we can then say return user. So the next thing we want to do now is come right here to our registration area and then set this to be equal to user. And right here we can check if user is instance of, so instance of the user's model. So right here, we want to say if user is not an instance of the user's model, then we know that there's actually an error being returned from this method. So the possible errors from what we define here will be either file is not valid or file size is too large. So it will be one of these two. It would not be both at the same time because we are actually returning the error immediately. So let's just come here. Now is where we are now going to actually make use of the error.blade.php that we created here. Remember, we are yet to actually put anything inside of here. But for now, we can just do a dump on error. So let's just say error. So we'll leave it like this for now. You can probably put it in a paragraph or something. Or later we just come and style it. So let's come back again to authentication. So we are just going to say return view auth dot register. Can use auth/register. And then we want to pass in data. So the data that we want to pass now will be error. So we're going to say compat error. And then here we can create a variable error should be equal to user. So we only do this if what we get from this method is not an instance of the user model. Otherwise, we are now ready to send the account activation email to the user. So if we successfully get past line 56 to 59, it means that the registration was successful. We have persisted the user's information to the database, and then we can now send activation email, which is what we are now going to do in the next lecture. So in the next lecture, we're going to clean up things and send the account activation email and then verify if everything works as intended. That will be all for this lecture. I'll see you in the next lecture.